Well, on January 8th, a traffic stop and subsequent arrests occurred in the Bala Cynwyd section of the township. The arrests and force utilized during the incident has been widely reported and drawn significant attention due to the force that was applied during the incident. Many of you have seen snippets of video of the arrest recorded by bystanders. Captain Pasternak and I will, as best we can, be providing context to what has been seen to this point. I want to say first that the use of force by police is rightfully looked at with a critical eye by the public, the media, and anyone concerned with fair and equitable treatment by police during police-citizen encounters. It's important that you know that it's also viewed with a critical eye within law enforcement. We don't just do this because it is our job or because we do it because we care about the people we serve, and we also care about the safety of our officers and the people we serve. We are keenly aware of the issues of procedural justice, equity in policing, and the fair and even application of law for all is a necessary conversation police leaders have to have with our communities. With that in mind, we are here to provide a full and complete review and analysis of the incident from the initiation to its end. We will be pointing out those areas where procedure were followed, and also, just as important, those areas where we performed poorly. Captain Pasternak will now provide the details around how the encounter started and through its conclusion in the parking lot on Conshohocken State Road. Gene.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to try and get through this slideshow. I have my tech guy over there. If I need any assistance, I might call upon him. So we're going to show some videos, body cameras and dash camera videos today. Get my notes, it'll help me through this. I could read them better. Before we get to the videos, I'm going to give you a couple slides that are going to kind of set the stage for what you're going to see and when you're going to see it. Up front, I do want to apologize. The system that we use in our in-house system has a very clear counter at the bottom, and I use those times, how many minutes, seconds into the video these events occurred. When we downloaded it and put it on this, you're not really going to see that counter unless the cursor's in exactly the right spot. So I do want to highlight what we're going to see, though. The dash cam video is going to begin at about 1:12 p.m. on Sunday the 8th. Now, the way the system works, the entire system activates when you turn the overhead cameras, or excuse me, the overhead emergency lights on. That will activate the entire system. Now, the system is already recording video, so what it'll do is it's going to attach to the event the prior 60 seconds of recorded video. So what you're going to see is you're going to first see the officer following the vehicle, and after 1 minute, the emergency lights are going to activate. And at the bottom of the screen, you're going to see indicators for when lights and sirens are on, and also the speed of the cars. At 1:18, the officer is going to activate his siren temporarily in a manual mode. The Volvo and a pickup truck in front of the Volvo are going to begin to pull over, but this is just temporarily. They're then going to resume driving away. At 2 minutes and 5 seconds in, the siren is going to be put on continuous, a full continuous steady mode. At 3 minutes and 29 seconds in, the Volvo is going to pull into the gas station or the Wawa parking lot. At 3 minutes and 50 seconds, the primary officer is going to approach the Volvo. He's going to have his handgun out down by his leg's side. At 4 minutes and 35 seconds, the handgun is going to be reholstered. You should note that it is never raised or pointed at anybody. At 5 minutes and 44 seconds into this video, the first backup officer is going to arrive. And at 8:01, the primary officer is going to open the door of the Volvo. Now, on this next slide is the body camera video of the backup officer. So the backup officer is going to be on scene, and at 1 minute and 20 seconds into his video, you're going to see the primary officer open the door of the Volvo. He's then going to begin empty-hand physical struggle with the driver to try and get her out of the car. At 1 minute 49 seconds in, the primary officer is going to disengage from the struggle and draw his taser. For about 10 seconds until 2-minute mark of this video, he's going to give repeated warnings that the taser is going to be used if the driver doesn't get out of the car. The taser is going to be deployed. The probes are going to be fired from the taser at 2 minutes into this video. At 2:41, after ineffective taser and struggle with the driver and multiple officers, the driver is finally removed from the Volvo. At 3 minutes and 27 seconds, after the struggle continues outside of the Volvo, the driver is finally handcuffed. So I just want to sum up some of the durations from these timestamps that I just read. The actual pursuit from the initial emergency lights being put on to the Wawa parking lot is about 2 minutes and 29 seconds. The officer has his gun at his side for 45 seconds. The primary officer engages with the driver while she's inside of the car for just over 4 minutes prior to opening the door. He then struggles as she resists the empty hand controls for 29 seconds. Again, as I said, there's 10 seconds of actual him warning of the taser deployment. And then after the taser's deployed, they struggle in the car for 41 seconds and then outside of the car for 46 seconds. The entire struggle from the moment the door is open until the handcuffs are completely successfully put on is 2 minutes and 7 seconds. These are some facts that you should know before you see the video, some things you'll be able to watch for. The driver of the Volvo is going to say several times that she did not feel it was safe to stop on Route 23. At one point, she's going to mention its many turns. As you watch the video, you're going to see this 1.3-mile pursuit. There are going to be multiple residential side streets, wide residential driveways. There's a wayfinder sign pointing to a nearby library, and a highly traveled intersection with a cutout, which is for a short time like a shoulder, but then it becomes a travel lane. You're going to see multiple uninvolved vehicles, which are traveling in both directions, pull over safely and yield to the police car. You should know that the driver was operating on a suspended driver's license. You'll see that all of the Volvo's windows are heavily tinted, and the front passenger also refuses to put down his window. A third passenger is in the back seat of the car, but that passenger remains undetected by the officers for the majority of this interaction. Upon the arrival of the first backup officer, an ambulance was called to the scene because the driver stated that she was taking a passenger to the hospital. That passenger would later decline any medical assistance. And after the taser and the struggle and the driver was taken into custody, proper post-incident care was provided to the driver. This next slide shows the travel route. The first marker is where the sedan is first observed tailgating. The second marker is when the emergency lights get activated, and there's some other points here where they first pull over. You're going to see that pickup truck pull over a second time, and the Volvo is going to go around that. And then from this map, you can see the various residences, side streets, and the configuration of the neighborhood there. Okay, this is the primary officer's dash camera. I mean, realize this is a tense situation. The people involved are heightened emotionally. There is going to be some foul language used. So this is the backup officer who goes to the passenger side. And what you should note is how dark these windows are. He tries to get the passenger to put the window down so that he could see into the vehicle. He's met with verbal resistance from the driver, not just the passenger. And you're also going to hear right off the get-go, they're calling for an ambulance for whatever unknown reason for the passenger. Jake, I think I need to get the volume up here a little bit. Oh, something went wrong. You're allowed to come up if you need to.
If you just skip forward, right arrow key, that'll bring you to where you.
Yes. All right. We should be able to get that audio a bit louder.
Okay.
Try it. I seem to have lost my, oh, there it is. There you go.
We have no idea. I'm gonna break your window. Step out. Step out of the vehicle. Step out of the vehicle. Step out of the vehicle. If you don't, I'm gonna break your window. I'm gonna break the window. Step out of the car. Step out of the car. Step out of the car.
Okay. All right, I'm going to go to the next video because another officer arrives and is on the other side. So you're going to get this audio from him, and you're also going to get a different perspective.
If you don't, I'm gonna break that window. I'm gonna break the window. Step out of the car. Step out of the car. Step out of the car. Step out of the car now. I don't care. Step out of the car. Calm down. He didn't stop for me.
Right. He had got one at you. Over
All right.
because it wasn't safe for you to pull over. So I pulled over into a parking spot.
Okay.
It was safe. This is 23.
Okay.
I'm not the man you can give me a white shirt here. Right.
Sergeant's on the way.
Call my dad for getting a trooper. No.
Yeah, I got it. No. I'm gonna break the window. You put that window down now. I'm gonna break the window up. You are not gonna put that window up. Now, I don't care. I don't care what you got.
No.
Get
Get out of my car. Get out of my car.
Get out of the car. You're under arrest.
No, not.
You're under arrest.
No, not. Don't touch me.
Yes, you are.
Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Under arrest.
No, not.
Yes, you are.
Stop.
Step out of the car. Step out of the car. You're under arrest. You're under arrest. Obstruction of justice.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. Okay.
I told you, do not touch me until your sergeant gets here. You told me, and you better not.
Break the case.
No.
Step out of the car.
No. My dad.
Step out of the
Do
car.
not fucking touch me.
Are you going to
Don't
step out of the
touch
car?
me.
Step out of the car.
Yeah.
Step out of the car.
No. You just wrong.
Step out of the car. Step out of the car.
You gotta get out of the car. You gotta get out of the car. No.
Step out of the car.
Come out. You got to come out. Come out. Just come out. Just come out. I got it. I'm good. All right, you're good. Stop. Stop.
Right? No, you came to my car and put your fucking gun out and went and taking me for the car. No! I asked for a fucking sergeant. Right now, I'm exposed. You got me exposed.
Hold on.
Get the fuck off of me. And I will not do nothing till my sergeant, the sergeant gets
Stand
some
up.
here.
All right, come on, stand up.
Sit there. Get the fuck on me. I'm covering myself. Cover it up right the fuck now. Are you fucking kidding me?
Just gotta sit in the car, all right? All right.
I'm gonna do shit. I asked for a fucking white shirt and you tell me, no, fucking fucking sorry. Don't put me in this. Stop. Don't put me in this fucking car.
Just walk. All you gotta do is walk. Just walk. You doing all this or not?
No, I'm doing this as a dog. I'm in my car with a fucking gun.
Get out.
Okay, so now you've seen the video. We're gonna go over some of the factors, the sub-events which actually escalated here. So, of course, the driver fails to yield to the police signals for a significant distance, and along the way, there's multiple safe locations to stop. Now, this is an arrestable offense. It's a misdemeanor in Pennsylvania. So once stopped, the driver and the occupants, they refused to fully lower the heavily tinted windows. For over 4 minutes, the driver refused multiple demands for paperwork, license, registration, insurance. This is required under PA law. She also refused commands to exit the vehicle. And all the while, the driver is screaming profanities and her intent that she's not going to follow any instructions or orders that the officer gives. The driver attempted to put her window fully up, and the officer responded by reaching in and opening the door. Now, still giving verbal commands, which she defies, she resists the officer when he tries to grab her and pull her out of the vehicle. She's yelling, she's flailing, she's pulling away. This is ineffective, so the officer disengages, lets go with the hands-on attempts, and he transitions and draws his taser. He provides verbal commands and warnings prior to deploying the taser. He tells her she's under arrest. The initial taser cycle has a very brief effect, if any. So the taser, when it's deployed in that fashion, if it makes the proper contact, it's going to incapacitate the subject. The subject's not going to be able to move. Their muscle system is overridden. Now, when you saw that video after the taser made contact, she's kicking her legs and flailing and moving around. So it appears there wasn't a good contact. He tries the taser a second time. It's a 5-second cycle. Again, it seems to have no effect. That indicates that either one or both of the probes have not made contact with the subject. Now, since the probes seem to be ineffective, he tries to use the taser in what is called a drive stun or a contact mode. He does that by touching the taser to a portion of the body. Now, if at least one probe has made contact, touching that probe to another part of the body will complete the circuit, and it will incapacitate the subject so that we can handcuff her or remove her. That doesn't seem to work. So effectively, what the taser is doing there is it's point of contact pain compliance. It's not going to be that effective in this situation. As you can see, she's able to kick away at the officer's attempts. So he tries that contact mode 2 times, ineffective. Since the taser's now ineffective, he abandons the taser. He puts it away, puts it on the top of the car, transitions back to empty hand controls. A second officer joins in with him, and they struggle while inside the vehicle, but they are able to pull her from the vehicle. A third officer has to join, and they continue to struggle before they can even get her handcuffed. And then, of course, once she's handcuffed, she continues to be combative. It takes all 3 officers to walk her over to the car. So the conclusions, the findings. Were the officers' actions legal? Yes, they were legal. The police do have the authority to require paperwork for traffic violations. We also have the authority to order the driver or the occupants out of the car. In addition, in this instance, the officer had probable cause to arrest the driver for fleeing and eluding. The officer tried empty-hand physical controls. That's a proper response to a non-compliant verbal subject. The taser is then a proper response to active physical resistance. And at all stages throughout this event, the officer gave constant verbal commands, and when a method or a tactic that he was using was ineffective, he transitioned to another tactic. That is in line with our training. Now, there's another question to ask. Did we meet Lower Merion Police standards, and did we follow policy and training? The answer to that is no. The officer did not follow best practices for de-escalation. We'll go into that in a little bit. And there were additional policy infractions and deviations from training. So, the policy infractions. As I said earlier, there's no body cam video from the primary contact officer. The officer's body-worn camera was not properly logged and synced in with his dash system, his in-car system, at the beginning of his shift. This is a required practice. It's a standard practice. Therefore, when he turned on his overhead lights and the MVR, the mobile video recorder system, activated, the body camera was not a part of that united system. It would have had to have been turned on manually. Of course, with the heightened circumstances and not knowing that it was an oversight that he didn't properly sync that system, he didn't turn his body camera on. So as you saw there's 2 minutes, 25 seconds with no direct audio, and there's even a few minute or so after that where we have the audio of the one backup officer, but there's no direct perspective video from the contact officer. Additionally, the officer did not use sound tactics, which would have mitigated risk to that officer, and it also would have mitigated the urgency to act. One thing the officer could have done, he could have waited behind the cover of his patrol car, waiting for backup units. From there, he could have used the PA system in his car. He could have instructed the driver to put the windows down so that he could see them, and then approach if he got compliance from there. So, de-escalation, you saw the video, a lot of it speaks for itself. De-escalation, tactics are a big part of de-escalation. You want to put yourself in a situation where if you have to make a split-second decision, perhaps you have more time or cover or distance so that you could process that a little bit better. You saw the officer immediately, without backup, he approaches the car with his gun out. He was very stern when he denied all the requests for a supervisor. You don't decide that. At one point, I think I made a note, she says, "I'm scared." He says, "I don't care." Understanding that we have to maintain some authority over the traffic stop, we also know that some type of calming or different approach or instruction could possibly bring the situation, the tense situation down a little. And at one point, a backup officer tries to say, "There's a supervisor coming," but the primary officer kind of stops that, won't let him interject. And then, of course, the primary officer has his handcuffs out in his hand before he has the door open. He's kind of occupying his hand. It's not a good situation if he has to go with hands-on controls with the subject. As you saw, he had to put his handcuffs on the top of the car, too. So de-escalation is very complicated. We get a lot of training on it. Tactics are very important. This is just one slide, but it's a basic decision-making matrix on when to use de-escalation. And the first thing an officer has to ask himself, is it safe and feasible? Now in blue, I've applied what we saw in this situation. the officers have every reason to be concerned. There's an unknown risk here. You have the pursuit. You have the non-compliance of the occupants. You have the inability to see in the car. These are all concerning. These are red flags. I would be in fear of standing next to that car for any prolonged period of time. However, as I mentioned earlier, better tactics could have improved the circumstances. Was the subject engaged? She was engaged. She was extremely uncooperative. She was extremely agitated. So the next question is, can I stabilize the situation? Well, at some effort to do this should have happened, something beyond the strict authoritative commands. However, there's no guarantee that this would have worked. There's no guarantee that de-escalation would have been successful. However, we should have tried. So what that would lead to, yes or no, our two-pronged situation below. You try to de-escalate. If you come up with the conclusion that no, you cannot stabilize the situation, the reasonable suspicion or the probable cause will be used to effect the arrest. So the next steps for the officer. There's a formal internal disciplinary process that has to be finalized, and the details will remain confidential. The disposition will include corrective training in addition to a personnel action, which is some form of discipline. For the driver, charges, just update you, I think the charges are filed and accepted by the court. So the driver has been charged with offenses of the Crimes Code, the Controlled Substance, Drug, Device, Cosmetic Act, and Pennsylvania Vehicle Code. As you can see the list of the charges here, there are several misdemeanors and several traffic violations included. Summary traffic violations, excuse me. And then the final slide here is our escalation of force model. It's the first time you're seeing it, might not be easy for you to process, but what it shows is that the ECW, which is electronic control weapon, the taser, is in line with a subject actively resisting, which is what we had here. Superintendent?
As I said at the opening, we are keenly aware of the attention and scrutiny that results from incidents involving police-citizen encounters, particularly those involve use of force. In the past, the main focus of the examination of the use of force was limited to determining if the force used was legally justifiable at the moment and under the circumstances encountered. This ignores the community perspective and expectations of society. The lenses these situations should be looked at is through multiple viewpoints, but the main goal is to determine if it is avoidable. With the goal of avoiding the avoidable, we in law enforcement now look backwards from the moment force was used and honestly assess whether our actions or lack of actions contributed to the ultimate outcome. With that in mind, this incident was extensively reviewed and analyzed to determine not only where the actions taken were consistent with policy and procedures, but also whether those actions taken followed the best practices and training provided on pursuit and use of force. Captain Pasternak provided context and facts that were not available previously. Based on the full picture and all available facts, the following observations and investigative conclusions were drawn. The traffic stop was initiated due to an observed operation of the car following another motorist too closely. This was first observed about a mile from the stop location. The driver of the Volvo had yielded once to the signal to stop, but then drove away. She also drove around the truck she was following during the ensuing pursuit. After stopping in the parking lot, she refused to provide her driver's license or cooperate with a legitimate lawful stop. Those are the facts to provide a fuller context to what then transpired. We have presented all of the video, not to be defensive or to cast a poor light on the driver, but to provide the public with transparency. That is necessary for us to continue to have conversations needed as they relate to police-citizen encounters and fair and equitable policing. As noted, we could have performed better, and we should have. Our policy development has for years focused on constant improvement. Our training is consistently updated to reflect lessons learned from past incidents, not only locally, but nationally. We will be taking the lessons learned from this incident to focus on several key factors in training, such as handling stressful situations at pivotal moments, the overall goal and how stress may divert from that mission. Slowing things down can be your most powerful tactic. How poor tactics contribute to the need for the use of force. Hard look at the reason mistakes are made and the benefit of mid-event disengagement. I think the captain just noted this previously, but the district court has completed processing the criminal charges. Copies of the criminal complaint and affidavit are now available. We have them in the back of the room. Please pick them up when you do leave. There are also copies of our use of force policy that you can take with you as well. We'll now take questions. If you would raise your hand, our PIO will be bringing around the microphone. So, and if you could just identify where you're from.
Superintendent, good afternoon. Ryan Hughes from CBS 3. You stated that you released the video today in an act of transparency. You also admitted that some mistakes were made. Regarding the initiating officer, that a formal internal disciplinary process will be done, that has been finalized. Why not, for full transparency, reveal to the public what the outcome of that will be? Why keep that confidential?
Well, it's confidential because it's still in process. There are specific, for employee regulations and civil service. We must present that through executive session with the Board of Commissioners. They are the one that takes action, and they do that at a public meeting. But certain steps have not taken place yet.
So in the end, the public will be aware of the outcome.
That is correct.
Okay.
It is still in process.
I'm sorry, Pat Loeb from KYW Radio. Is it very common for Lower Merion Police to stop people for tailgating?
It is one of all the different potential violations in the vehicle code we would stop people for. We don't have specific statistics breaking down on each individual one, whether it relates to going through a red light, stop sign, following too closely. We have issued thousands of tickets during the course of the year.
Some may say that when she had her hazards on, as she continued to drive, that she was indicating maybe that she was going to pull over when she felt safe. Her attorney tells us that, really what escalated this was with the gun drawn, and she didn't feel safe pulling over on that road. When she did, she pulled over. And when the gun was drawn, that escalated it. What would you say to her attorney?
Well, as you can imagine, we're not going to be having a conversation with the attorney at this point. However, it is clear, and you saw it, that she stated that at the stop, that was something that bothered her. So, that is factual.
Do you think, what should she have done in that situation? If you're driving, you have a cop behind you, you're trying to figure out where to navigate. That is a tight road, as we all know. There was a couple areas she just should have pulled over sooner.
Well, as was laid out, the total distance was about 1.3 miles. Best practices, and this question is asked frequently: what do you do when you're stopped by police? What are the things you should do? It is dependent on time of day. For instance, if this was a nighttime situation, we suggest people could turn on their interior light, indicate that, yeah, I see you, I will be pulling over. We don't want people to pull over in hazardous locations for two reasons. It puts the driver and the occupants of the car in danger, and in reality, the officer is the one who's outside of a car. They're put in danger as well. There are instances where people will stop, and we will then get out of the car and tell them, no, don't stop here, please move, and we'll indicate where you should move to. So yes, you should slow down, you should indicate you are stopping, and then at the first opportunity to stop in a safe location, do so. There were those locations, it was midday, no weather conditions, and there were wide areas and places to stop.
And what happened to the officer? The officer who was involved, did you mention, is there any disciplinary action, or is he back on the street and good?
The officer is currently on desk duty while the investigation of the process is continuing.
If I can add to that, we've had instances whether.
Step to the mic, I'm sorry.
Excuse me. To your question, we've had instances where the people we're trying to pull over pick up the phone and dial 911. That's another, hey, is this a real officer behind me? Yes, it is, you know, and instructions go from there.
What drugs were found?
That should be in a criminal complaint.
Yeah, you'll see it. It's now a public document. It's oxycodone. Well, thank you very much for your time and the question. Yes, sir. One more question.
Yeah, I'm Aaron Baskerville with NBC 10. I walked in late, so forgive me for that. But what I'm hearing is legally, he might have done the right thing, but he didn't follow the best practices. So what do you say to the public who hears that and basically hears that legally he did the right thing, but according to maybe you guys and the public, he didn't do the right thing? So what's your response to folks who will still be angry because you're kind of admitting he didn't do what you wanted him to do?
We want to make it clear and to be transparent is we can sometimes fail. Our officers are human. We provide the best possible training, try to put them in positions where they understand the stresses of the job and the tension, not only that they are going on there, but what the citizens are going under when there is a police-citizen encounter. And we are being, again, upfront saying that there are things we can do better, and we will be addressing that. Thank you. Oh, yes. One more.
Yeah, Dawn Timothy from Fox 29. I was just wondering, you know, the woman said she was frightened and she was scared and wanted a supervisor. And that didn't happen. And the officer, and you admitted, said, I don't care if you're scared. I mean, that's a little disconcerting, you know, as we're watching that video. And then you wonder if another person is pulled over and fears something similar could also happen to them. I mean, what do you say to that person?
Well, you're pointing out precisely what the Captain Pashnak was noting, best practices as far as de-escalation and how to address the aggression you're facing weren't utilized. There were better ways to respond to that, and that is correct. The supervisor was called for, an ambulance was called for to address the various things we were seeing unfolding in real time. There is no guarantee that a supervisor will get to any particular scene in any particular time period. They may be tied up on other calls. So that is not a determining factor whether or not you continue with an investigation.
Right, but for people who are watching this, kind of like what Aaron was saying, I mean, it is difficult to watch, and I can imagine, you know, people watching that video and fearing like that could be them.
Understood. You know, the question was asked if this was common, and as we noted, there are thousands of car stops in this township, and you can imagine across the suburban area, and this is one that is extraordinarily unusual.
Can you just talk, how delicate are these situations in general? I mean, because at what point you want people to comply, I mean, for your officers as well. You know, these are delicate situations where sometimes there's not a right answer. I mean, can you talk about that, how delicate these situations can be?
Yeah, that takes it from what is the requirement, of the law for people to do. In this case, we're talking about driving privilege. You're licensed to do that act. And then the question, it's a delicate balance of dealing with people who don't want to comply with the law and how they react when you're addressing that issue. It goes back to what you should do is do what you're required to do. Provide your driver's license, react the way you're supposed to whenever you're stopped for a vehicle code violation. Thank you.